Sonia was 17, but in Mr. Charles's house she lived like she didn't matter. Ever since her mother remarried and brought her into this new home, Sonia had been reduced to a shadow, moving, working, obeying, but never truly seen. From the beginning it was clear, she wasn't a daughter here, she was the help. Mr. Charles never shouted. His cruelty was quieter than that. It lived in the way he called her only when something was wrong, in the way he sat back while she cleaned up after everyone, and in the way he smiled politely at visitors as if nothing was wrong. Sonia, wash the toilet. Sonia, go and iron Somto's school uniform. Sonia, you didn't sweep under the chairs well. Her name became a command, not an identity. Her mother had changed too. Ebere used to call her my sunshine, but now her tone was always stiff, impatient. If Sonia spoke, she cut her off. If Sonia explained, she sighed as though tired of her voice. It wasn't discipline, it was disgust. And the difference was sharp. Her half-siblings, Somto and Ngozi, lived like royalty. New clothes, new shoes, cartoons playing in the parlour while Sonia mopped the floors. They never washed plates, never lifted a finger. When they messed up, her mother would laugh, say, "They're still young." But when Sonia even looked tired, her mother snapped, "Lazy girl, you're not even trying." There were days Sonia didn't eat until the house was asleep. Days she washed dishes with soap that bruised her fingers. Nights she cried quietly while folding clothes on the cold floor of the hallway. But she never spoke back. Because in this house, speaking was rebellion, and rebellion came with punishment, silence, slaps, or skipped meals. She told herself it was just temporary, that maybe if she kept being obedient, things would change. But each day chipped at her hope. Home training? Number, this wasn't discipline. It was slow, daily erasure. And yet, Sonia endured. Quiet, watchful, waiting. What she didn't know was that her escape would not come from mercy nor from love. It would come wearing fur, money, and madness. And it would change everything. The day it happened felt ordinary at first. Just another slow evening in a home where Sonia moved like furniture. The television buzzed from the sitting room as the aroma of a goosey soup simmering in the kitchen danced faintly into the hallway. Sonia was on the porch, wiping down the wooden rails, her thoughts miles away from the chores her hands were still doing. Inside, Mr. Charles sat in his usual spot on the sofa, one leg crossed over the other, his fingers wrapped around a cold glass of dry gin. The living room light flickered slightly, the fan hummed lazily overhead, and the channel remained fixed on the news. Then the screen changed. It was the kind of headline that could break through any routine. Breaking! Billionaire chief Donald offers 1 billion naira to any woman willing to marry his dog. The news anchor's voice carried weight, but it still sounded like a joke. A prank, maybe. Sonia paused, her hand freezing mid-wipe. Did she hear that right? Inside, Mr. Charles leaned forward, the glass in his hand paused halfway to his lips. On the screen appeared the image of Chief Donald, tall, dark-skinned, with a glint in his eyes and rings on every finger. He wore a purple senator outfit with gold embroidery, a red cap perched confidently on his head, and a staff carved with dog-shaped ivory. Behind him stood Baron, a massive white dog, groomed to perfection, with a diamond-studded collar and a stare that pierced through the camera like it understood everything. Chief Donald's voice echoed through the speakers. "This is Baron, my pride, my companion, my inheritance. Any woman who agrees to marry him will receive 1 billion naira, up front. I don't need a reason. I just want loyalty. For him." The screen cut to images of the mansion, the pool where Baron bathed, the personal chef who prepared his meals. The dog had more luxury than most human beings could ever imagine. Sonia let out a half laugh. What sort of madness is this? She didn't expect anyone to take it seriously. No normal person would. It was the kind of thing you discuss in jest, at beer parlours, at salons, in bus queues. But as she glanced back into the sitting room, something about Mr. Charles's posture shifted. He wasn't laughing. He was staring hard at the screen, the kind of look he gave when ideas were forming in his head. the kind that usually meant trouble. Sonia squinted. His hand reached out, picked up his phone slowly, and he began typing. A second later, he paused the television, rewound it, and paused again. Then, he took out a small jotter and pen and carefully wrote down the number that appeared beneath the broadcast. Her breath caught. That wasn't a joke anymore. The air changed. Her stomach tightened. He turned, his eyes scanning the house through the open window. Their eyes didn't meet, but she could tell. He knew she was watching, and he didn't care. Sonia backed away from the window slowly. Her hands were damp with sweat, not water. Her mind raced with questions, but none of the answers felt safe. Inside, the headline repeated, 1 billion naira for a dog's bride. No joke. No escape. The world outside was already buzzing. Twitter was on fire, Facebook flooded with memes, market women shouting over tomatoes. Nawa so person fit marry dog now. But in this house, something darker was unfolding. Something real. Sonia felt it deep in her bones. Whatever madness Chief Donald had stirred in the world, it had just found its way to her front door. The night came with its usual heaviness, the kind that made the walls feel like they were pressing inward. In the sitting room, the TV buzzed low in the background while Mr. Charles sat in his armchair, legs crossed, eyes still distant, his mind replaying the broadcast over and over again, like a hymn of madness. Ebere walked in tying her wrapper, her brows raised. "You've been quiet since evening. Wetinde your mind." He didn't answer right away. He simply tilted his glass, finished the remaining gin, and then leaned in, speaking like he was sharing a sacred revelation. "You remember that Chief Donald offer? The one with the dog?" She chuckled, waving her hand. "Ah, Charles, please, don't start. That man know well. Marry dog for money? Who go try am?" He looked at her, long, steady, and serious. Then he whispered, 1 billion naira. The silence that followed was sharp. Ebere laughed again, but this time it cracked at the end. "Are you joking?" "No," he said. "I'm saying, Sonia." Her face shifted. "What?" she asked, confused. "She's not doing anything here, always complaining, always looking for pity. Let her finally bring something useful to this family." Ebere's mouth opened, then closed. She stood, stunned, watching him like she didn't recognize him. But then something passed through her eyes, an unsettling calm, almost like realization. Slowly, her lips curled into a bitter smile. So, she will be useful for once. That was all it took. The next morning, the house was too quiet when Sonia was called into the parlour. Her feet were bare, her wrapper tied roughly. She had barely finished sweeping the kitchen when Ebere called her name with a tone too calm, too sweet. They sat side by side like they had news. Good news. "We've made a decision," Mr. Charles said. Sonia stood, confused. "Decision?" Her mother smiled. "You're going to be a wife?" She blinked. "Wife?" "To a dog," Mr. Charles said flatly. Her breath caught in her throat. What did you say?" "The billionaire's offer," Ebba said. "You heard it. 1 billion. And you will marry the dog." Her hands started trembling. "Mummy, please. You will do it," Mr. Charles snapped. "And if you try to run, you will regret it. That money will change everything. We've already made contact." No, please." Sonia dropped to her knees, her voice breaking as she sobbed into her hands. "I'm not an animal. I'm your daughter. You are whatever we need you to be right now," her mother hissed. "Don't embarrass us." Mr. Charles had already pulled up his phone. He typed quickly, attached a photo of Sonia in the kitchen, a stolen shot from behind as she bent near the sink. Subject, offer accepted. Attachment, bride photo. He hit send. And just like that, her fate was sealed. By sunset, the sound of engines echoed outside. Sonia peered through the curtain and saw 3 long black SUVs parked in front of the compound, the kind only the rich used. Men in suits stepped out, sharp-faced and quiet. She turned, crying, backing away. Please don't let them take me." Mr. Charles grabbed her by the arm, his grip like iron. Don't say a word. Don't move. Just obey." Ebere stood with arms folded, watching. Her face was stone. The front door swung open. "We're here for her," a man said coldly. Sonia screamed. She fought. She cried. But no one moved. She was dragged out in front of her own house, tears streaking her face, the neighbors too afraid or too entertained to interfere. And as the door slammed behind her, everything she had ever known collapsed into silence. The ride was long and silent. Sonia sat squeezed between two strange men in black suits, their faces unreadable. Outside, the city passed in a blur, street hawkers, flashing traffic lights, familiar corners that now felt like distant memories. Her eyes burned from crying, but her tears had dried into silence. When the car finally slowed, the gates alone looked like something out of a foreign film, tall, black and carved with golden lions. They opened with a groan, revealing a sprawling estate wrapped in manicured lawns, stone fountains and glowing lights. It looked like royalty lived here, or something else. She was led inside. The floors sparkled like water. The air was cold, perfumed with foreign scents she couldn't name. Her shoes tapped softly against the marble. Up a long staircase past massive portraits of a man she assumed was Chief Donald, smiling beside that dog, Baron. Then she entered her room. It was massive. A king-sized bed framed with golden rods, walls draped in velvet, a chandelier that glittered like diamonds hung overhead. There was a vanity with gold trimming, curtains that shimmered like silk, and a closet larger than the entire kitchen in her former home. It was breathtaking. It was suffocating. She stood in the center, frozen like she had stepped into a dream that didn't belong to her. Mark, the man who brought her in, turned with his face blank, tone colder than the air. "This is your room. This is your cage now." Sonia turned to look at him. "Why am I here? What do you want from me?" His eyes didn't flinch. "Obey the rules, keep quiet, cooperate, or you die. There's no going back." He left without another word. A few minutes later, a woman brought in a silver tray of food. Rice so fluffy it looked unreal, grilled chicken, juice in a crystal cup. Sonia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at it. She hadn't eaten that day. Her stomach growled, but when she looked at the meal, she didn't see comfort. She saw bait. She picked at it slowly, the flavors rich on her tongue. But in her heart, she felt like an animal being prepared, fattened, dressed up for something she still didn't fully understand. She swallowed, forcing calm. But the fear inside her only grew louder. The days moved like mist, slow, quiet, confusing. Sonia woke up in silk sheets, ate meals served like a queen, and wore clothes she once only saw in magazines. But the silence inside that house echoed louder than any scream. No visitors, no noise, just her and the distant sound of footsteps in hallways that always faded before they reached her door. And no dog. She began to wonder if the whole thing was a twisted joke. Maybe this was a setup. Maybe they were trying to scare her into obedience, make her beg for mercy, only to laugh in her face later. But no one came. No one explained. The staff were cold, mechanical. They moved like people programmed not to feel. Every time she asked questions, they simply bowed or walked away. It felt less like a house and more like a stage waiting for a scene to begin. Then one evening, the door creaked open. Mark stepped in. His usual stone face carried something unusual this time, something close to amusement. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth, and his hands were folded neatly behind his back. Sonia looked up from the chair near her window, startled. "What is it?" He tilted his head. "Your husband will be here tonight." She blinked. "What?" Mark walked further in, eyes locked on hers. "Baron, your husband." She gave a nervous laugh. "The dog? You're joking." But Mark's smirk faded into stone again. "Treat him like your husband. From tonight, your role becomes real." The room felt like it tilted. You're not serious. You've been chosen. There is no going back." Sonia stood abruptly, panic rising like acid in her throat. Please, please, I can't do this. I'm human. I'm not. This is madness. Mark turned for the door. Beg all you want. Cry. Scream. No one will save you. When the door shut behind him, she collapsed onto the floor, her breath ragged, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She whispered prayers. She bit her knuckles. She tried to convince herself this was a nightmare she'd wake up from. But the knock that came an hour later was real. The door opened. 2 handlers stood at the threshold, leashes in hand. And then Baron walked in. He was massive, his white fur clean, soft-looking, almost glowing under the lights. His collar glittered with small diamonds, and his blue eyes shimmered like cold water. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He walked slowly, silently, like he owned the room, and laid down gently on the cushion beside the fireplace. Then he turned his face away from her, as though she didn't exist. Sonia couldn't breathe. She stared at him, her whole body trembling. And in his eyes, in those icy, haunting eyes, she saw something she couldn't explain. Sadness. Not just sadness, human sadness. And that terrified her more than anything else. The silence between them was maddening. Every morning Sonia would wake to the sound of slow footsteps, soft pads on marble tiles, as Baron moved across the room. He never looked at her, never barked, never showed any form of interest in her existence. He would walk to his feeding corner, eat quietly, and return to his velvet cushion without so much as a glance. He behaved more like a grieving man than a dog. It unnerved her. At first, she kept her distance, watching from corners, always alert, afraid that one day he might snap, bite, bark, or worse. But days turned to weeks, and Baron remained eerily mournful. Sometimes, deep at night, she'd hear him whimpering, a strange, low sound, followed by sniffles that were too human to be ignored. Then once, just once, she caught it clearly. A tear rolling from the corner of his blue eye. She saw it glisten down his white fur and drop onto the tiled floor. She froze in place, staring at him from her side of the room, her heart pulled in 2 directions, fear on one side and a strange, soft ache on the other. Pity. No, she told herself, not pity, not for a dog, not for this dog. She curled up that night and told herself it was all manipulation. Maybe they drugged her food. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe the tears weren't real. But deep in her chest, she knew something wasn't normal. Baron wasn't just a dog. He was carrying something, a weight, a secret, a sorrow. One evening, while standing on the balcony, lost in thought, Mark appeared behind her like a shadow. She jumped. "You're getting too close," he said, voice cold. Sonia frowned. "Too close to what?" "To him," she blinked. "I've barely spoken to him." Mark stepped closer, his face unreadable. "Don't let your emotions deceive you. You're not here to feel. You're here to obey." Sonia's lips parted. What's wrong with caring for a creature that's clearly suffering? Mark's expression didn't change. Love is forbidden. Empathy is dangerous. You are here under strict terms. Obey him, but never love him. Ever. His words dug into her like ice. "Why?" she asked, suddenly breathless. "What happens if I do?" Mark didn't answer. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. She stood there, shaken. Why was it so dangerous to feel for a dog? What if he wasn't just a dog at all? The night felt heavier than usual, the kind of weight that pressed into your skin and sat quietly on your chest. Rain tapped gently on the tall windows, and the lights in Sonia's room had long dimmed. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, too tired to cry, too numb to sleep. But it wasn't the silence that kept her awake tonight. It was the sound rising from the far end of the room. Baron. He wasn't just whimpering anymore. He was weeping. Loud, guttural, mournful sobs that sounded nothing like a dog and everything like a man in agony. The kind of crying that echoed off the walls and clawed into your bones. Sonia sat up slowly. Her heart thudded against her chest. "What is happening to you?" she whispered. The sound grew louder, shaky breaths, sharp whines, deep, aching cries that seemed to rise from someplace deep beneath his skin. Baron lay curled on his cushion, his body trembling, his paws covering his eyes like he was trying to block out the world. She couldn't take it anymore. Whatever this was, it was no longer just fear. It was pain. And for reasons she couldn't explain, it was hurting her too. Every cry felt like a hand wrapping around her lungs. She swung her legs off the bed and stood. Each step toward him felt heavier than the last, like the very air around Baron had thickened, like the space itself was charged with something unseen. Her skin tingled, her arms grew cold, but still she moved closer. He didn't flinch as she approached. Her voice trembled. "Baron." And then, gently, like touching something holy or haunted, she reached out and placed her hand on his head. A low pulse rippled through her palm, like static and warmth all at once. The room spun. Her breath caught. The world tilted. Her knees buckled. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was Baron's face slowly lifting toward hers, his eyes no longer blue but glowing gold, deep, ancient, human, and within them, a look not of a beast but of someone trapped. Then everything went black. Sonia collapsed to the floor, unmoving. The air around her crackled once and then fell still. To be continued. Subscribe to my channel to catch the next gripping chapter of Sonia's journey, where love, mystery, and the supernatural collide. Don't miss what happens when the truth behind Baron is finally revealed.